And welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting day, another week of StarCraft. Welcome to Sparkling Tuna Cup number 30, a bi-weekly open tournament to every single region. I'm, of course, your host, ZvP, and with me, I'm joined by my lovely, my beautiful, my plushies. My plushies for now, but later on in the evening, I'll be joined by many other casters instead. Of course, this is the first of our second broadcast of the day. We're going to be starting things off with Sparkling Tuna Cup. Later on tonight is going to be World Team League as well. So back-to-back broadcasts, a night full of StarCraft. But we kick things off here. In Ancient Cistern, and spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, we have our orange Protoss player representing Storm Gaming. It is MindelVK. And spawning in the top right-hand corner of Ancient Cistern, we have as opponent, we have the Indian Zerg player representing Alpha X. It is Demi. Here we go. Exclamation mark B in the chat if you guys want to have a look at the bracket yourselves, because we have a stacked tournament with players from all around the world. This is what I love about Sparkling Tuna Cup. Unlike some of our other tournaments, we had Grand Platypus Open yesterday, for example, which is region locked to the ESL Masters Asia region, and we also have the Tenacious Turtle Tussle, which is region locked to the Americas and Asia region. Again, we exclude Europe and Korea in both of those events, and America and Latin America in the GPO, for example. But here in Sparkling Tuna Cup, we open it up to the rest of the world, and we see this probe initially already being annoying as well. Not like this. Oh my god. So yeah, a little bit of a disruption early on there, delaying that spawning pool. But yeah, Sparkling Tuna Cup is open to all the regions, and I guess because we have some close ties with a lot of those regions, we get some really good representation. You know, tonight we have Demi, Miomaika, Lamjoy, Nice, Beastork, Ranger, Oriana, all representing like the more Asia region, or Southeast Asia, China, Taiwan, Hong Kong. Then we also have the Europeans. You know, we've got Cristiano coming out, we've got MindelVK, we've got Night Phoenix, Nicaract as well. It's great to see them turning out. We had a couple of Korean signups, but no check-ins. Oh, we had one check-in, to be fair. We had Control, the Korean Terran player, of course. How could I forget Control, puppy? But outside of Control, I believe Rebellion didn't check in, and Nightmare didn't check in either. So some of the other kind of usual Koreans that we have in this event aren't here, which means this opens things up to potentially a new champion for the Sparkling Tuna Cup. We shall see. It's typically when a Korean does sign up, they do typically dominate, whether it's Cure, whether it's Bjorn, whether it's Nightmare as well. Already though, Jesus, MindelVK is he throws out a third pylon as well, delaying this base for as long as possible, and one of the pylons is going to finish up. The Adept gets here in time. 4 Lings is not going to be enough to defend. A very nice start here for MindelVK. He invested quite a bit. You can see 100 minerals down the drain already because of the cancels, because of the probe dying. But now we have a second probe, and Demi is in a really awkward position. He's forced to take the unnatural natural, which is standard, but he has to take an unnatural third as well. Like, or maybe a more natural third. It's hard to say. Things are getting complicated here as Demi just cannot expand at his second base location. It just is not allowed. So MindelVK doing a great job of being annoying here. Quite a swell of Lings, or quite a surge of Lings have been made here for Demi, looking to eventually take control of this area. But MindelVK just wedges his Adepts here in between the mineral patches to make sure he reduces as much surface area as possible and delays this area for as long as possible as well, or this base. I mean, the base isn't going to get taken anytime soon anyway, because Demi's still working on his third. Behind this, MindelVK going into a standard opener. We have a Stargate into an Oracle here as well. But again, MindelVK just kind of flexing his skills already. Does shade into the main base, gets one drone kill. Will eventually be cleaned up as the Lings do catch up with these Adepts. And finally, the pylon will fall as well. But like, the damage has been done, and this is again a really awkward situation for Demi. It's going to be so difficult to defend against the initial Oracles. It's going to be difficult to defend against Glaive Adepts as a follow-up as well, if that happens to be the follow-up. And why do I say that? Well, it's difficult to rotate the queens around. Between all three of these bases, there's very little creep connecting them, and even if there was creep, there's just so much area to traverse as well. So already a great start from our Protoss player. We see a couple of Lings going across the map to harass it. It looks like, oh, they will get us around on one of the Adepts. Oh, the Adept positioning was not good enough, and only one Adept is not going to be enough to keep this alive. The Adept will fall, and the Oracle is forced to stay at home to defend. The second Oracle does activate its pulsar beam back at home. Meanwhile, the first one is across the map. Was able to get 2 drone kills, but only 2. There were plenty of queens in the main base. We've got 3 queens here at the third, and here at the natural, a little bit more exposed, but we at least have a spore. So for the time being, Demi is spreading out his queens quite well. Despite that, we get a 3rd drone kill as the Oracle barely does escape. And behind this, it is going to be that Twilight Council and a Forge, so it's not going to be a Glaive Up follow-up. I was kind of hoping for it to see if MindelVK could try and abuse this area once again, but alas, no, it is not meant to be. See MindelVK just going into a much more standard game after a chaotic start. See, the 4th hatchery is being taken as we speak. Additional gas is being taken as well. Nothing too crazy. Demi's going to be going into +1 melee, which is pretty standard here, especially against Blink Stalkers. But we also have a Baneling Nest, not a Roach Warren. Interesting choice. So Demi's going to be relying on pure Ling Bane. And be a risky way to play, as you don't have that anchor, that Roach Ravager anchor point to your army. At least not yet. I imagine we're going to be seeing a Roach Warren maybe later on down the line. And we'll see how things settle from here, as no, we're actually not going for Blink. We're going for Charge instead. So this is another variation that has been making the rounds, and oh, I see. I understand. There is the Robo being thrown down as well. So it looks like MindelVK is going to be going into Charge Lot Archon for the time being, but especially because of the SimCity that we're seeing, I wouldn't be surprised if MindelVK is going for a more macro-oriented fashion of this. I mean, we still have a gateway explosion. Oh, okay, never mind, there's a lot of gates. I was curious if he was going to go for a robotics bay and get into double Colossus production first, but no, that's not the case. The MindelVK is just amassing these gateways. He's going to have so many here for when eventually he moves out. Once this robo is done, I imagine we're going to be seeing that prison. Oh, shout out to the tuna. So MindelVK, what he's doing, this is a hero build. Hero has done this and used this to great effect in WTL. He's used it to great effect in KSL as well. What Hero does is he amasses oracles. As we can see, the oracle production has not stopped, and only 3 are being revealed. The remaining are staying back at home, but we do have an Overseer headed in that direction. MindelVK has to move his oracles away, but already another oracle has been spotted. This is a bit of a tell. This is going to be mass charge lots, mass oracles, and this is designed to overwhelm and overpower. The oracles will focus down all of the queens, and the zealots will clean up everything else on the ground. But something that is unexpected and that MindelVK isn't aware of is the Baneling Nest. We're going to have Banelings, and that is going to be crucial in the defense. If it was only Ling Roach Queen, then I would say Demi's in trouble, but Banelings change everything. Like, the zealots are going to charge on forward, but they're not really going to be able to do too much. They're going to run into their deaths, depending on how good the connections are. 4th base is being taken behind this. There's a Templar Archives for those Archons. Zealots are arriving. We have 20 Zealots already. And we're moving up towards 25, 24 even. Oh, but the Banelings are being revealed, and they're going to be looking to crash on in. The Oracle's going to try and focus them down. Oh, decent Oracle control there. The Oracles now from here are going to be diving on top of the Queens, and it looks like, oh, the Queens are barely going to fall. Actually, they target down the Spore instead. Uh-oh. And even if the Queens fall, it looks like the positioning is too good. The Roaches will clean up the Zealots. At the same time, though, we have a bit of a Zealot run back here on the left-hand side, and there is nothing here. A very late reaction from Demi. He was focusing on the main attack. And even more Queens are falling afterwards. Zealots are just getting out of control here. Demi, he drops 20 workers. And the Oracles are still standing strong. Just trying to find whatever damage they can. Eventually, MindelVK is going to be forced back. It looks like this hatchery should survive. But Demi's economy is hurting right now. He is down 23 workers. He is down workers compared to the Protoss player, which is never a good thing. And MindelVK knows that a counterattack is coming. We've got shield batteries, cannons on the way, Archons as well. Focusing everything on holding and defending this 4th base. Oh, he's going for the hatchery. He's going for the hatch. And he will get it. The hatchery will go down. Demi knocked down to only 3 bases. He does have a massive Ling Roach army. But I feel like he has to make use of it. He's not. He's more focused on defending back at home. As a result, MindelVK is going to get away with this lead. So much supply here in these roaches. Looks like Demi is looking to be a little bit more active with them. But for the most part, he's just focusing on defending, protecting his creep more than anything. He goes for a bit of a baling run by. Sorry, a baling drop. Up, up, up. Ooh. Decent connection. Some lost mining time. It's something. It's necessary damage. Like, Demi has to do more than just that, though. He has to try to come back in some way. And for now, he's keeping his army back at home. He's working on Hydras. He's working on Lurkers. This is a wise choice. So, on the one hand, you could just send everything you have across the map and go all in and try to end the game. But it's risky, right? It's a risky move, especially because we saw MindelVK is preparing for that. He's set up back at home, very defensive, very fortified. So Demi, his other option is to tech up, is to try to rush into Lurkers and slow the game down. MindelVK is still focusing on a ground army, so if we get, say, 6 Lurkers, and if they're all in position, then MindelVK is going to have a hard time breaking Demi, and Demi can slowly max out from there and basically turtle. But there's a window. There's a big window here where the Lurker Den is still in the way. We don't really have any Hydras either. Like, Demi still needs time to actually get these Lurkers up and running. So MindelVK has a window here where he can push out, and Demi's not going to have much to defend. He's going to have Roaches, no Ravagers, a little bit of Lingbane. Lingbane, which will be cleaned up by all these storms. But it looks like MindelVK's content to just turtle as well. You know, he fully walls off here the center area. He's slowly going to be taking a 5th base. Even though I do think that MindelVK has a bit of a window, like has a win condition right now if he moved out, he's not going for it. He's going to be defensive instead. And he's going into Sky Toss. 2 more Stargates and a Fleet Beacon are on the way. MindelVK is going to be rushing into Sky Toss. Demi going to be going into Lurkers. Oh boy. We're in for a long one. I do believe that MindelVK had, like, again, had the opportunity to go for a 1-2 punch and go in and potentially end the game. But alas, he also doesn't want to risk it. He dips into the main base, a nice parasitic bomb. The Prism, what do we see here as... Oh, we're going to force a cancel on the Warp In. We get eyes on the Hydra Den. We get eyes on the Hive and the Lurkers. A very important scout here by MindelVK. He sees everything. He sees the Spire as well. He knows that we are going to the late game. Oh, and he even forces a cancel on that Spire. Oh, very nicely done. Forced to rebuild here. And this is important because MindelVK has all the information he needs. Demi doesn't. Demi doesn't know what the army is looking like. For all Demi knows, it's still a ground-focused army, and it is, to be fair. But he doesn't know that carriers are on the way. That's the problem. Oh, actually, no, sorry, my mistake. He did see the Stargates as they were thrown down, so he should be aware of that transition. I guess that's why he's focusing and prioritizing that Spire. We have Spines being thrown down. No Spore Forest yet. It's okay, though. Those carriers, they do take time to build. Meanwhile, MindelVK is finally being active out on the map, and he has to. He doesn't want to throw everything away, but MindelVK is maxed, and he only has a handful of carriers. Like, he needs to throw away some of this army to build up more. Same time, Link counterattack here on the right-hand side. There's not really too much to defend, and MindelVK, yeah, he can't really warp in either. Ooh, that's a kill, not a cancel on that Nexus. Meanwhile, you'll have to see MindelVK just going to be clearing up all the creep that's on the Tuna. But as he moves out, Demi moves in. He knows that MindelVK is out of position. The Lurkers are getting on forward here. This 4th base even is under threat. And MindelVK is not turning around. He can always recall, of course, but he's committed to his own counterattack. But Demi hit first. Oh, the probes! Ooh, 25 probes go down in an instant. So the carriers have arrived. We get a yoink, but there's nothing that shoots up. So a bit of a premature abduct there by Demi. He's trying to remax with his Hydra army, and this is where I'm really concerned because the lurkers are forced back because of the carriers. Sure, Demi got a base, but he's losing more than just a hatchery. He's going to be losing at least 2. These immortals can go into the main, and how do we stop these immortals? Oh my god. The lurkers have arrived, and we do have a little bit of SimCity here, or a little bit of body blocking, forcing MindelVK to stay here on the low ground. We have some decent abducts as well. At the same time, the carriers are coming in from behind. It looks like the ground army of MindelVK is being cleaned up, but these carriers are just finding so much damage. Look at the supply block for Demi. We have a recall. After all said and done, Demi, he's down to 34 workers and he can't rebuild. Goes for a link counterattack. He should force a cancel. Ooh, then that is a kill. Another Nexus goes down. Both the players are hurting. Demi makes, I think, like 10 overlords. He gets out of his supply block, thankfully, and now he's going to be able to rebuild. But again, his economy is still in shambles. He's trying to rebuild as many workers as possible. He's long distance mining as we speak. Getting up to a more respectable worker count at 44, which is still needs some work. Meanwhile, the Zealot counterattack cleans up the site defense, gets a queen as well. Can't really dance with these Hydras. Oh god, but there's no good answer to the carriers. Hydras are okay. How many Vipers do we have? We have 3 Vipers. These Vipers are going to be the MVPs. Every single abduct should be a dead carrier. We have enough anti-air. We do have that Spire, so we can start Corruptor production if we so wish. MindelVK, though, I do think that, like, after all that chaos, like, he's still in a better position. He has a better army. He's about to get his 4th base up and running, and he can Maynard his probes over. Here we go. The army of Demi has been spotted. God, well, there are those abducts we were talking about. We do have some solid feedbacks. 1 carrier will go down, but we only got 1 abduct. Oh, God. And now MindelVK, he can take the fight. He has to be very careful with these High Templar. They're moving a little bit too far forward. Oh, God, the Lurker Spines almost take them out. But the High Templar barely do survive. They get their storms off one after another. There's only 1 High Templar remaining now. There are none. The Roaches did their job. After that trade, MindelVK keeps his carriers alive. He did lose 6 High Templar though, and I think he only got like 4 storms off out of potential 12. Meanwhile, Demi, you know, now at 66 workers, a decent probe. Oh no, a decent drone count. Does have to Maynard over there. Has to get some more efficient mining going. Oh, at the same time, there's that Zealot run by. The Queen died earlier. The Spines were taken out as well. Drones are falling. Meanwhile, MindelVK moves forward. A little bit too close, though. There are those abducts. 1, 2, 3 carriers will go down. Losses that MindelVK cannot afford. And it looks like Demi has done it with the power of the Viper. He kills enough carriers. He's stopping MindelVK from getting to a critical mass. And Demi, his economy is looking quite stable. He's losing a hatchery, sure. He lost 2 hatcheries, actually. As Demi actually killed one of his own as he was gathering that energy. But we are down to only 4 carriers. They don't even have all the interceptors either. MindelVK, sorry, Demi just clawing his way back in. Things weren't looking too good. Not gonna lie. But the Hydra Lurker Viper stands strong. Nexus will go down. And here come those abducts. Oh, another carrier falls. We're down to only 3 carriers. At the same time, another Zealot run by, but this time we have 2 Lurkers to defend. The hatchery's surprisingly low, but Lurkers should be able to protect it. The Vipers aren't here. Vipers are gathering energy instead, so not the best trade here for Demi, but I think he can kill all the interceptors. Yeah, he can and he will. Demi pushing on forward. No more High Templar, no more Storms. Without splash damage, Hydras, they can do quite well for themselves. GG gets called, and Demi will take game number 1. GG. Oh boy. And there were definitely some good moments from MindelVK. Definitely some really good moments, especially when he did kind of go further in the base trade. Like Demi went down to 30 or so workers. Unfortunately, MindelVK couldn't keep his 4th alive or his 5th alive either, so his own economy was also hurting as well. He was really struggling to keep his base count up. On top of that, we saw maybe a little bit of we saw some overextensions as well with the carriers and with the High Templar. The overall army control from MindelVK at certain points was, was lacking a little bit. And with that, Demi does take the first game. Now we're getting into game number 2. Catching up in the chat. Of course, how could I forget as well? There was also that moment where Demi was honestly far behind and he was forced to try and rush into lurker tech, and MindelVK had an opening. He could maybe abuse this window where Demi wasn't quite there yet and he only had roaches to defend, but instead our Protoss player decided to turtle up as well and go into sky toss. So a very back and forth game, very dynamic, as we are now getting into game number 2, and spawning in the top bottom right hand corner of Babylon we have our orange Protoss player representing Psystorm Gaming. It is MindelVK. And spawning in the top left-hand corner of Babylon, we have as opponent, we have the red Zerg player representing Alpha X from the land of India. It is Demi. Oh boy. Let us go. Again, MindelVK, he had a very powerful push when it came to his charge lot Oracle. If you remember, he was amassing Oracles back at home. He was going for, how many was it? It was more than 7 gates. I want to say 9 gateways with just mass charge lots, and he did so much damage with his push. He crippled the economy of Demi. But MindelVK didn't have a follow-up. Well, it looked like he would. If you remember, he was like preparing for an all-in. He was preparing for Demi to retaliate, but Demi never did. And MindelVK was stuck with like this immortal Chargelot Archon army with Storm as well. And he was resting on his laurels a little bit, He had this advantage. He stayed at home instead and decided, you know what? After a while, maybe I should take up into Sky Toss. And that transition point as well, it took a while to really get going. So it did allow Demi, it gave him the opportunity to come back in the game, to re-drone, rebuild, get into a hive tech army as well, and he was able to make a game out of it. Oh. And from that, I'm quite happy that I picked this series first. There are a lot of really good matches in the first round, a lot of really good players, and I'm glad that I'm here to bear witness between these two. I do think that they are relatively evenly matched. We'll see how we get into this. We shall see as, MindelVK is going to be mixing things up. Game 1, he went for a standard Stargate opener into a 3rd base, into +1, into charge. Here in Game 2, Twilight Council opener instead. This should be for Glaive Adepts. We have already pulled out of gas. I'm feeling 4 gate Glaive Adepts, but we'll keep an eye on the gateway count. We'll see if even more get thrown down. We shall see as the first Adept gets across the map. Just a scout, just to be a little bit annoying. Just camp the area in between these bases. Keep Demi oversaturated in his main for a little bit longer. And Demi is none the wiser. I mean, he did of course spot the initial Adepts coming out. Because we have a Stalker as a follow-up, this should be for a Twilight Council, but again, sometimes some Protoss players, even if they go Stargate, they still make a Stalker anyway, just to keep their Zerg opponent in the dark. And there is that glaive. So far, it is going to be 4-gate glaive adept. Not very committed, to be honest. Like, with this, we can harass a little bit, we can apply some pressure, and typically we expand behind it. So this isn't all in, but this is still designed to deal damage and to keep the Zerg player back at home. Otherwise, MindelVK won't be able to expand. We do get a bit of a recall there. The Adepts were caught out. And we're not really committing to any more gateways from here. We're not taking any additional gases either. So it's a more like economic variant of this. The other thing to take note of, actually, that I just realized is that this is 4-gate glaive Adepts without a robo. So there is no prism with this either. We're just going to be warping in back at home, and we're going to be shading across the map instead. So again, just that much more resources preserved here to eventually expand. We can see MindelVK, his third base is a little bit delayed. I'm sure he would have liked to have thrown it down a little bit earlier. There we go. Now it's on the way. There it is. Wow, interesting choice here. Okay, so MindelVK is being quite flexible with this build. Even though it was 4-gate glaive adept, he is staying at home for the most part. His move out is very delayed. He had to stay at home to actually eventually expand and take this third base. And he's given Demi so much time to respond. We're at the 5-minute mark. This is hitting like 5 minutes late, or like so much later than it usually does. Demi's already up to 46 workers. He's got Lings, he's got +1 melee. Doesn't have a Roach Warren though. And MindelVK, even though this is delayed, we see why, or we see what else he has in store for Demi. It's for the Dark Shrine. This is very unusual. This is not standard at all. Glaive Adepts into DTs? You're crazy, Bob. You're crazy. There's a Forge as well for +1. I imagine we're going to be getting into Blink, and there we go. Blink is now on the way. But these DTs are going to be coming out of left field. Thankfully, Demi does have Spores at his natural and his third base, but no Spores in the main. But at the same time, there's also no Robo, so we actually can't use a Prism to get the DTs into the main base. They have to go through one of the other attack paths instead. Oh, that's a lot of links. As Demi's going to be taking a fourth base behind this. MindelVK getting his own third saturated. And yeah, there are the first DTs being morphed in, and I wonder what the plan is going to be with them. The DTs are going to be waddling across the map. At the same time, the Adepts are going to try to keep the attention of Demi back at home. Here we go, the Adepts just dancing with the Queens, threatening these shades, keeping these Lings busy. Meanwhile, the DTs have a mission. They can either go for the third or they can get a kill on this fourth base. The fourth is looking very exposed, by the way. But it looks like MindelVK is backing off with his Adepts, which means that once these DTs do hit, Demi will have time to respond. Do we have an Overseer? We do not. Oh, and the lair just now finished. I believe these CTs, they should be able to get a kill on this hatchery. I like this. I think MindelVK intentionally backed off. He wanted to wait for this hatchery to finish so he can get a kill instead. But the longer he waits, well, I mean, we just finished up our Overseer. We gotta go, Papi. We gotta go. Overseer is out. We do have Overlord Speed on the way as well. And Demi's about to slip in and get a full scout of the main. And he sees the Dark Shrine. He is aware. And because he saw the Dark Shrine, a Spore is on the way. Like, these CTs, they had potential. I do think they could have maybe even killed this hatchery, but again, they just haven't gone for it. Maybe he wants to get drone kills instead. Maybe he's just waiting for it to be saturated first. But alas, we do see Demi moving out here. He's setting up a bit of a drop to go into the main base. More DTs are being morphed in as we speak, which may have been spotted by Demi. Okay, looks like he hasn't seen it yet. Meanwhile, Demi, he's droning up to 82, getting full saturation. A really healthy worker count for Demi. He's got +2 melee on the way. Very similar to last game. He's going to be going Ling Bane, now finally into Roaches. Just delaying his Roach tech for quite some time. Likewise, MindelVK has just been refining his army back at home, going into More Stalkers, Archons as well. We have a Prism to reinforce, and the DTs are still just chilling here towards the bottom left. Here we go. Now MindelVK can focus on his assault, and as he pushes out, I feel like that's when he's going to be striking with these DTs. Been a long setup. It has been a long setup here, but I hope it does pay off here for him. At the same time, as he moves out, we have that link drop into the main base, but nice reaction here out of MindelVK. He does spot it immediately. Stalkers and Adepts are going to be able to clean this up. Meanwhile, MindelVK can focus on his push. We have a lot of Ling Bane waiting for him. The drop has been cleaned up. Now we go. Let's go, Poppy. Let's go. DTs are moving on forward. At the same time, though, here come the Banelings. Archon's doing a great job body blocking, but the Banelings, they do find their connections. They get past the Archons. They connect with the Adepts. Demi shuts down this push. At the same time, ooh, the DTs were actually right-clicked on the hatchery itself, and the DTs were cleaned up. GG gets called, and Demi will take game number 2 and the series. GG, well played. I was I was anticipating so much from those DTs. I was anticipating so much, but alas, didn't work out in the end. Really solid play there out of Demi. And a shout out to MindelVK, because game 2 was a little bit more straightforward and a little bit more one-sided. Was a little bit more one-sided. But game 1, MindelVK was looking really on point. He was on fire. He was doing so well for himself. And so, yeah, unfortunately, you know, it went Demi's way, but game 1 could have gone either way. Could have gone either way. It was a lot more competitive. GG.